Welcome back. In this video, we're going to go over the switch form elements. I'm currently in the app builder. I'm going to go ahead and go to the left panel into my elements tab and the form section. I can see a bunch of form elements and I can see my switch elements over here at the left bottom section. All right, I'm going to drag and drop it on my page in my little form over here. So I'm going to just add some little positioning styling here. I am going to center it to the left and the right, put some margin at the top of, call it 20 pixels, right? Now, as you can see, nothing happened, and that's probably because our element is currently positioned or displayed inline. What happens if I switch it to like a block? There we go. Our elements trigger. This is just standard CSS, all right? So our switch elements is quite similar to our input elements that we discussed in previous videos. So the switch elements, just like the input elements, have similar attributes like the app data field, which is basically the field in our app data that is binded to this element. We have the manage data flow, and this just simply means that the system manages the data flow or you manage the data flow yourself. And by default, this is false because the system manages the data flow. Checked is basically if you were managing the data flow, then you get to decide if it's checked or not. The off color, the off handle color, the on handle color is just basic styling of the properties, the color, coordination of the switch element. And then the disabled to basically say if the element should be disabled or not. The title is your standard title attribute for HTML, and the it's non-reactive is simply saying that we do not want this element to react to data changes, and by default that is false. This is going to be used or should only be used on elements that you want to ignore data, right? Changes in your application. All right. So let's go ahead and look into our app data. As you can see, we toggled this not too long ago. And if I were to go to the bottom, I can see that the switch is saying true, and that's switch 2. Now, the switch is, for all intents and purposes, this is a Boolean element. So it's usually true or false, right? And we can use this in our forms. The same way we use it, we would use like a checkbox. We could also use a switch. This is just standard data entry elements. All right. So let's go ahead and change this to something else. So I have name, description, and I can say is a subscriber, right? Or maybe I can change this to something that might be more relevant to like a name and description. I can say is citizen. Let's just assume that we are building some kind of important form, document, whatever. And now if I were to toggle this on, I can basically go into my app data and I can see a citizen is now true. And if I were to toggle this off, you would see that a citizen is now false. All right. So up to now, we've been going over the managed data flow. So the unmanaged data flow. So if we wanted to manage this flow ourselves, all we would need to do is basically just turn the managed data flow on. So now we have to provide the state for our toggle elements. So we have to basically provide an onChange function. We do something very similar here in our inputs. We have a basic input onChange function that we've already written. You can watch the inputs video. I'm going to reuse this for our switch elements because on this platform you can reuse your functions, right? So I'm going to say basic on input onChange. I'm going to give it the same. All right, this function is actually not going to work now I think about it. All right, I think it should work. Let's change that to a citizen. All right, and all this function is doing is just setting whatever we pass into it, which is the event's target value, right? It's setting that data into our app data field, which is a parameter, right, that we've set in our function. Okay, So if I were to, let's say, click on this and come over here in our app data, right, a citizen is true, right? But as you can see, it's still saying that it's false. And this is because we are managing the data flow, meaning that we also have to tell the system if it's true or false. And we could simply just change this to point to our app data field. So I can say parameter dot app underscore data dot is citizen. All right. And there you have it. All right. Now it's working again. So there you have it for your switch elements. We've basically gone over how to bind it to app data. We've gone over the managed and unmanaged data flow. We've basically configured it both ways. We reuse the function, which is a cool thing. And we basically set the checked value. All right. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.